All right, I think can everyone hear me? I'll watch the chat just to make sure that if there wasn't any audio problems. So I would love to welcome everyone to our very first virtual empowerment luncheon for PWB. I'm so excited. A lot of work has gone into this, and of course, huge to Connie Dahl, as always. You know, you're always there for us and behind the scenes making sure that we look good and things are going well, and we couldn't do it without your support. So I appreciate it. So everyone, what an exciting day for us. Here we are virtually, but you know what? We're gonna let this stop us. We wanted to give you guys great content. And so we're super excited to be presenting our speaker with you today, Danielle Schutz, dynamic speaker. I know you guys are going to love her. Her message is so powerful. And you know, we always love bringing these kinds of things to you for our PWB group out there, my ladies, and a few men as well. So. All right, we have a quick few announcements to make. We are going to have a membership drive in September. So for those of you that have been with us for a while, you might remember that we did a membership drive last year. And actually, we combined with SMC last year as well. So we decided to do that again this year. So you get 2 for 1 almost, right? So you could join both for $100. So we're going to do the same thing again this year. So you get 2 different councils for $100, which I think is amazing because normally SMC is 90, PWB is 75. So that is really, really a great value. So if you haven't renewed yet, or if you have a friend that you'd like to have join, please try and get your renewal in, a new friend to join in September coming up. And so watch your emails for those. We will be sending out announcements for that membership drive. As well, we have scholarship money that we do every year for our PWB members who may not remember or might not know. PWB does give away scholarships every year for those that apply. Towards furthering your education. We've also had you available to use for IBS as well, although we don't know what that's going to look like in 2021, but for training, for education, anything to further your career or the betterment for yourself. So please, again, watch for those announcements that are going to be for your email if you'd like to apply for a scholarship this year. We have some new exciting content coming too for our website and on our Facebook page. Some of the board members that we have here are doing some videos and tips and tricks on, let's see, Miss Genevieve is going to be doing one on outstanding tools that you can use, or simple use too, to make your Zooms a little bit better, or any online media that you're doing. She's got some great tips, really cool little products, little, even inexpensive things that you can do to kind of up your game in that. So that's awesome. We're going to have Barb Anderson give us a short video and tutorial on how to maximize in Sales Navigator. We're going to have some LinkedIn tools as well, how to really maximize your LinkedIn there. We will also have content available for if you know anyone that needs employment help now, if you have a friend that might need resume help or brush up on a resume, even if they're not a PWB member, maybe just we want to make sure that we're out there supporting not only our PWB members, but our community as a whole for women. So watch Facebook and our website for new content coming in some exciting ways. And lastly, I'd like to thank all those that contributed to our community outreach. Every time we have a luncheon, we do have a community outreach ask, and a little more difficult this time because we weren't in person and we can't bring our essentials there and have fun and drink wine afterwards and package all the bags, but you still made a difference this year. We were doing Bottoms Up for Babies, which benefits Hope House, and Bottoms Up for Ladies, which benefits The Gathering Place. And I know that they did receive some very generous donations, and thank you all who have donated. It's still not too late. If you would like to donate, those links and the shipping addresses are in the emails that I sent out inviting you to the luncheon. So check those, go back into your deleted box and go find those links if you still want to do that. Okay, so next up, we really want to thank our sponsors. I know it's been such a strange year and a really difficult year for everyone, and we wanted to remind you guys that these sponsors still came through for us. They have always supported PWB, and today is no exception. are so grateful that they're continuing to support our council and the membership at large. And so I really wanted to give them a huge shout out today. And the first one that I'm going to shout out is Custom Fly Company. So Custom Fly Company has been around for over 20 years. They're installing and maintaining poles across the Front Range to promote spirit, image, and visibility. Have you looked at your flag today? All right, our next sponsor, I'm going to share my screen now, is BAC Appliances, and we have a quick video that they would like to present to you all today. I'm going to share my screen here real quick.
Exceeding expectations. Everyone has a different idea of what it means. For our customers, it means the satisfaction of a job well done. It means access to specialist advice and the right product at the right time, whenever and wherever they need it. For online customers, it means an effortless purchase using time-saving tools and reliable delivery to the job site or local branch. For us, exceeding expectations means always keeping our promises by building long-term relationships, delivering excellent service, and having the courage to do the right thing by taking responsibility for our every action. We aim to be the best at what we do, and together, build a great place to work.
All right, so thank you so much to BAC. Big shout out to Sarah there. And now Connie's going to share her screen and show you something on structure. Awesome, yay! So everybody give a virtual yay, woo! to our sponsors, Kim Griebling of Custom Flag, Sarah McDaniel with BAC, and Stacy Locke with Structure. Thank you, ladies, all very much. I appreciate it. So during our chat today, or during our speaker today, I wanted to remind you guys that we do have chat down there, and you can choose either everyone, or if you just want to send a question to the panelists or a remark to the panelists, you can do that as well. So there is a little drop down there, so you can choose what you'd like. And since we are creating new content, if you have any needs that you might need from PW, or if you have any ideas for new content that you might be interested in, or a resource you might need, please feel free to put that in the chat for everyone to see, or you can send it directly to the panelists if you want to just keep that to us. We certainly would appreciate that. We love to get your feedback. We want to give you content that is useful to you. So please make sure that you're exercising that chat really good today. As well, we do have a Q&A button down there. For those of you that may not be doing a whole lot of Zooms, there are some tools at the bottom of the screen. So you can use that Q&A, and it will go into a Q&A area for the speaker. So you could either use chat, Q&A, and then she'll be addressing those during the speech today, as well at the end. She might go back in there and kind of look, and then if we have any that end up in the chat, we can do that Q&A at the end as well. So I'm really excited for that. So make sure that you exercising that chat and those Q&A fingers. So without further ado, my dear PWB members, I am going to hand it over to Genevieve Benson with Miles Brand. She's going to be introducing our speaker today. Have fun.
Thank you, Beth. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Danielle Schutz today. Her and I actually went to high school together, and I have been admiring her career from afar for quite some time. And when we started talking about who we wanted our speaker lineup to be in 2020, she immediately came to mind. I'm just so excited that she's here with us today, and I'm a little bit about her background. It's very impressive. So thank you so much, Danielle. Danielle Schutz is the founder and CEO of The Daily Boss Up, a digital startup that provides coaching, mentoring, and consulting for leaders at every stage of their professional development. Danielle is also the Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for the Colorado Trust. At the age of 26, Danielle embarked on her executive leadership path, ascending to the position of Chief Financial Officer for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. After the state, Danielle served as the Vice President of Finance and Business Operations for the West Division of Comcast, managing a $1 billion capital portfolio and a team of 60 employees located in 7 different states. Danielle's youthful exuberance and tenacious work ethic have garnered her numerous accolades, including inclusion on the prestigious 2019 list of the top 25 most powerful women in business from the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce. In 2018, she was awarded of the Year Award for her work with youth in the community, and she's also a recipient of the 2017 Denver Business Journal's 40 Under 40. Often the youngest executive in the boardroom, Danielle possesses a unique insight on leadership dynamics, millennial engagement, and handling the nuances of a rapidly evolving workforce. Danielle's distinct industry perspectives has made her a highly regarded keynote speaker. During her remarkable career, she has been featured at TEDx Mile High, Women of Telecommunications Tech It Out Talk, the Black Women Lead Summit, and the Women of Denver Summit, to name just a few. As a mother and community advocate, Danielle is passionately involved in giving back to the community. She has been a long-time mentor for the Challenge Foundation. She is also the president of the board for Mile High Ministries and an executive board member for the Women's Foundation of Colorado. So let's put a virtual hand together for Danielle Schutz. Thank you so much for being here today. It is my pleasure to introduce you.
Thank you so much for having me. I see anyone's beautiful faces, so just know that I am just picturing how stunning you all look on your Zoom. I'm sure you're all backlit and nothing else is going on in our lives right now, right? I'm really excited to be there. It's just so cool the way the world works, and to have Genevieve be able to introduce me. We went to high school together, so it's so cool. And the most amazing things about social media, right, is to be able to stay connected and see each other's children growing up, and her beautiful new baby I get to watch from a distance. And so I'm just really grateful to be here today. I'm especially enjoying, during these really crazy times, spending time with women and professional women who are balancing a million things on a good day in a normal time. And right now, you know, I know that's escalated to a trillion things for so many of us, as we're really, like, it's coming to light, you know, how much is put on women and sort of this superwoman complex that is happening and has been long happening for so many of us. And what's been happening with schools closing and all of that, and so much is added to our plate kind of without a question. And so I just hope today that we can create space for safety, space to be imperfect. As they said, if you think of a question as I'm going along in the Q&A, and I will make time for Q&A. I love Q&A. I think it creates such robust dialogue. And I really want this conversation to be as interactive as possible. If we were in person, it would be more interactive, more workshop style, but the team here did a great job helping us sort of prepare for it to be as active as possible, even though we are not together in a room and going to enjoy cocktails after this. I'm going to enjoy a cocktail. It just won't be with all of you, unfortunately. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. Genevieve gave you a little bit about my career, but I think some of the most important things, the stuff that's not in our bio, the stuff beyond bio, is that, you know, I'm a mom to two. And in fact, back when Genevieve and I were hanging out is when I had my son Kai. I had him when I was 16 years old. And on Wednesday of this week, we checked him into his dorm room at the Colorado School of Mines. So I actually have a college student, which is very difficult for me today since I still am an adolescent myself most of the time. And then my daughter Layla is in the 8th grade. She has no idea / doesn't care that I'm on a speaking engagement right now. So she will likely make some type of appearance asking me some type of question for her day. And we're going to roll with that, because that is what we have to do right now, and is just roll with it. I wanted to start our conversation today with a question, and it's a survey question that I want everyone to fill out, because Zoom is amazing and does all these cool things that my assistant usually does for me. But today, our great Erin is going to help us facilitate these survey questions. I have a couple of talks so that we can kind of interact as a group. I'm going to give you no context, so that might drive you crazy, but you still have to answer the question. And my question is, if you had to choose between green or gray, choose a color. And then if a couple of brave souls on this call would just, in the chat, tell us why you chose the color you did. And I'm going to just give us a couple minutes to just answer the survey, and we'll see where we sway as a group. And then my brave souls, please just go right into the chat, all panelists and attendees, and tell us, why did you choose your color? We've got a lot of brave souls. I love this. There's a bunch of badasses on the phone. Oh, these are awesome. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of them out loud to the group too. But we have 28% of us said gray and 72% of us said green. So the strong majority for green. Now, by the way, no matter how many times I ask that question, no matter what audience I'm asking that question to, no matter how big, no matter how small, green is always like an overwhelming majority of what people say. So that's really interesting. So here's a couple of our whys. Gray goes with most colors and is a perfect base color. I agree. Someone said green for growth. Green is calm and feels warm. Gray is calm, balanced, neutral. I choose gray as I am more drawn to it in clothing and design. Green complements almost every color. Find another gray. Kelly green makes me feel beautiful. I love that. Life, growth, again, I love that. It's more vibrant, full of life. Neutrality for gray is what somebody says. And then someone said green is a color full of life. So some of the whys behind what we say. I usually choose gray because I consider myself somebody who lives in this very gray space. Like I really enjoy the gray. It's like very anti-CFO of me, is that I just don't see anything as black and white. And the thing that usually drives me or interests me is like the place in between the black and the white, and thing is nuanced a little bit. And so things that are too black and white are hard for me. So I think that's why I choose gray. It's also, and you can see my decorative style. I'm in a house full of gray right now as well. So that just goes to show, like somebody said it, I use it in other things like that. So I usually choose gray. Most people choose green. If I had given you more context for the color, if I had said it has to be on the color of your walls in your home, this would have skewed in a totally different if I said you had to wear this color for the rest of your life, you might have been like, I think I'm just gonna be gray because then I can just put other colors as accessories. I didn't give you any context. All I wanted was your perspective on the two colors without any other information available to you. And the reason I do this exercise to warm up our brains for this conversation today is around perspective. And I think that at the end of the day, what we're all doing is coming to little decisions 1 minute at a time with our lived experience that associates us with that decision. That's all we have. What we're doing. That's what any of us are doing. You know, no matter how phenomenal and smart and brilliant you think people are, or maybe you think people are the polar opposite. What they're doing is coming to the table and making decisions with their lived experience. That's why diversity and inclusion are so important in our industries. You know, I'm in finance. This is a builder association. So I know that when you look around at the people that you spend your days with, that there's not a ton of people that look like you. And a ton of people that have your lived experience as a woman, as a professional woman, maybe as a mom, as a spouse, and the way that you're bringing to the table the perspectives that you do. And so I love that green or gray because it simplifies what we're doing every day. And perspective is, you know, the greatest gift and, you know, sometimes the biggest curse that we all have as we move through our days, as we move through as professionals, as we move through as women, and all the things that we're carrying every day. And something that's really important for me with that perspective is to usually sit with, like, you know, how might I be wrong? And I wonder, you know, if people ask themselves that more often about lived experience and like, okay, I'm making this decision that I like green because I love the Green Bay Packers and my dad brought us up, you know, rooting for the Green Bay Packers, or I hate the Green Bay Packers. And so I'm choosing gray because I, you know, despise the Green Bay Packers. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. And therefore I am going to go against green. It's all about I, right? It's this perspective of I, like, how am I experiencing this conversation, this decision that I have right now? Why am I choosing this? What is it that brings me to the table with the perspective that I have, and how important that perspective is? So I want really quickly for you to think about this and ask yourself this question about your green or your gray. How might you be wrong? What's one way that choosing green if you chose green, or choosing gray if you chose gray, might actually be the wrong choice? And then if any of my amazing brave souls would be willing to put that in the chat so I can read them to the group, they'll facilitate the next part of our discussion. So just a couple of folks, if you would please put it in there and say, how might I be? Come down, take my hand out of my socks. Yeah, Genevieve said, by if choosing one or the other, I made someone feel excluded. And if we were in person, what I would have done is broken you up into your groups and had you as a group talk through, okay, green group, how might you be wrong? And what's really interesting that comes out of it is when you start thinking about somebody else's perspective with the color, right? And so one of the ones that came up that I had never thought about, but that was super was, what if someone's colorblind? 72% of our group chose green. Now, if you're colorblind, you can't, depending on what color blindness you have, can't see green. And so we may have revisited that decision if we had known somebody in the room wouldn't have been able to see the color. And so many people in that moment would have let go of it needing to be green, because what would have mattered is that everyone in the room was able to see the color. That would have outweighed any of our personal experiences with, or at least for most of us, it would have been like, that would have been an easy, like, no, I'm switching teams there. We want to make sure everyone can see the color green, or the color that we choose to represent our decision as a group. And if I enjoy having this conversation with women more than anyone, because this to me is a superpower of ours. Our ability to just take off how that impacts me and say, how does this impact other people in this room? And how might I be wrong about this is just so, so powerful. I also like the question because it's a great question to use when you feel like someone's not being inclusive of your experience at the table, your experience coming to a speaking engagement and trying to get my child, who some of you may have just saw, off to go get her school materials and head to track practice. And like the experience that I'm coming to this conversation with today, the calendar of events that I've is so different than everybody on the call. And it's really, really different from people who aren't experiencing their professional lives in the way that we are as women. And so I love that question. You can ask it of yourself anytime. You can ask it of big groups anytime. When you get stuck, if you insert, how might I be wrong about perspective? And then what I want to encourage all of you for the rest of the day is just to remember that you already have this superpower. It might often get used against you, right? Like, you know, you get this feedback around, oh, you're too nice, or too emotional maybe, or you care too much what people think, or whatever it is the feedback that we often get as women when we show up with this superpower of sort of going, yeah, what about X, Y, and Z? Or this isn't about me right now. Like, let's think about the whole group and make sure that people are included in that. There's a really big difference between diversity and inclusion. I think that this country and most industries have been focused on diversity for some time, especially gender diversity. And what diversity means, and this is like a simple way for me to describe it. Diversity means we're all at the table and we're having a meeting. And there's 50% men and there's 50% women. What you've done in that moment is achieve gender diversity. The meeting gets started and we're talking through things and women don't speak. So you were sitting at the table and you're thinking, okay, like, all right, I only ever hear the men speak, or a woman tries to speak and she's interrupted. You have an inclusion problem. So you can achieve and never achieve inclusion, because inclusion means creating a safe place. Inclusion means voices carry equal power, authority. People are heard in the same way. People are judged in the same way. That's inclusion. I can do the same behavior that a male does, and it comes with very different labels than it would for a male. Genevieve read this about Comcast, but I was actually the construction CFO for the West Division of Comcast. So it was always fun to walk into a room for the first time and watch people's faces when they saw me. And I worked with mostly men, mostly white men. And it was the most tenured group of employees at Comcast. So on average, they had been there 32 years, and I was 31-ish at the time when I got that job. And so it was just a fascinating dynamic. So I got my seat at the table, but finding my voice in the industry and finding my voice in the conversations was a much harder and longer journey, right? because it wasn't an inclusive environment for me all the time. Thing is that I'm like a very direct communicator. So actually construction was a place where I felt more myself than other industries I've been in, you know, healthcare and other things like that, which my personality wasn't it was harder to feel included than in construction, because I can be like, you know, sort of tough, let's just get things done. And so that kind of matched. But it took me a while to even understand that, like, oh, actually, this is like a good fit for you. This is a part of like your natural organic way of being and showing up in the world. And this is a better space for me to feel safe. And so I am thinking through like inclusion and diversity and how do we all feel included. It comes down to this like one thing for me, which is that we all sort of have this, you know, think about your capacity as a circle. Think about, this is it. Some people's circles are really big and like it feels like they can do things in the same 24 hours where I'm getting 4 things done maybe. I know we're all doing those judgments and making those comparisons, and we should totally stop, because at the end of the day, it is not this long, infinite line. We all have so much capacity. And what happens in environments where you're included, and I'll say this, that this is every environment, because these systems were not built for women, they weren't built for people of color. And so we're going into systems that weren't built with our perspective, our green and gray in mind, right? So we're already coming to the table having to understand how gray fits into that picture where it feels like everybody's on the side, right? And so if you feel that way, I just don't want you to feel like you're crazy, because that's real. Like that's systematically, that's real. That's what's happening. And it's shifting, thank God, but it's shifting and it's going to take a long time. And my daughter will benefit from the shifts that are happening today that I might not see as clearly as I'd like to. And when you think about your energy and your capacity, this circle that you have, this big, however big it is, however big you feel it is, it's finite. And what happens is when we come to the table, let's just say we have a big presentation tomorrow morning. This is our capacity. We are good at our job. We know what we're doing. We know what we want to say in this presentation. We know what we want to get across. We know we're right. We know this is the right direction for the company. And so we're going to head into this presentation. It's the night before the presentation. And here's what we start to do. We go, okay, well, should I wear a skirt or pants? Like, will they take me seriously unless I put on a black pantsuit so that I look more male? Oh, I can't wear bright pink because like no one's going to take me seriously. You know, I'm a woman of color. So I also had to add the like, ooh, can I wear my hair curly, or like, do I look too young? Or should I wear it straight so that people take me more seriously? Do I wear it back in this slick, intense bun? So we're going through all this stuff in our head, right? About, whew, before I even walk into that room and say one word, I just used up a piece of my pie on stuff that has nothing to do with my job. Like literally nothing. Whether we want to believe it or not, we just took some of our energy, our finite energy, our beautiful finite energy, and we used it up on things that will not serve whether that presentation goes well or not. And we did it because we've been taught that we have to do it. And because these environments create a feeling like, how do I feel more included? How do I get closer to green from my space of gray? And we start with, how do we look? And how do we talk? I had a conversation once with someone who said like, well, I read in an article one time that women, because our voices are at a higher octave, not mine, but are at a higher octave, that people actually can't hear you as well. And so therefore, I always try to talk with a deeper voice whenever I'm communicating in the business environment. And I just sat there and thought to myself, what a shame. Like, how do you communicate your brilliance if you're overthinking the octave of your voice? There's no way that what you're saying will be as good or as confident. How can you show up confidently if you're worried about the octave and not exactly about what you're saying? And that really brought me to this space of like, how much of our energy before we even walk into a room, our jobs, are we using up trying to get closer to green from gray, because the system is green. It's 72% green, and it's, you know, it's only 28% gray. And so, woo, I feel excluded. I feel like maybe I don't belong here. And so I want to ask another survey question of the group, and we're going to, I promise I have questions and not just talking about what we are dealing with. So our survey question is, how are you using your energy in ways that isn't serving you? So choose A, B, or C. I'm sure it's all three, but which one is the most, if you think about it the most? So appearance, I just described some examples. Finding your voice. You've got your seat at the table, or you've been invited to the meetings, or you're on the project, but you have a hard time like sharing your opinions, disagreeing with the group, so your voice is muted. And then asserting yourself, meaning, ooh, if someone just said something really crazy to me and I don't feel like I can say anything back with labeled as this or that, or I feel scared to take the lead on this project because I'm worried that people are going to call me the B word, or, I really have a strong opinion about this, but I'm not saying it. So sort of asserting yourself, defending yourself, requiring that people meet you where you are. Which of the three do you feel like you might be using your energy on before you're doing your job? Wow. Yeah. And by the way, it's all three for all of us. It's actually all three. It's just one might be stronger than the other. Gotten past the appearance thing in most cases, where I'm not thinking too much about what I have on, or what color I'm wearing, or if my hair is curly or straight. And I have certainly gotten past the voice thing, because I believe that part of my purpose is to make sure that my voice is heard. Asserting myself and creating boundaries for how people can talk to me, or treat me, or jokes that they can make, or choosing to like go into battle sometimes with folks. It's still a real struggle for me. It's still something that I really overthink. Oftentimes, if I do defend myself, I stay up all night that night. Even at this stage where I do actually feel like I have a lot of power in my career, I still feel really like I really have a hard time asserting myself, or defending myself, or requiring certain treatment for myself that I deserve. And so I think that that's a really that's one that I know my pie is getting sliced up. And really, most of us, by the time we walk in to do our jobs every day, 50% of our pie was taken up. We've got those three things that I asked, but we have other things too, like how did it go? Did you sleep last night, or were you up all night with a crying baby? Or in my instance, were you up all night crying yourself because your baby went to college, right? Like, are you at your best to give to others when you haven't been given to for the last 2 weeks? I got divorced 2 years ago, and the thing I did was tell my team at Comcast. I was still at Comcast at the time, because I just knew that I was going to show up in a really different way for some time. And they were really used to a leader who helped them solve problems and who was really present. And I just couldn't be present as I wanted to be in meetings. I was distracted, and I didn't want people to tell themselves a story about me. And so I said, I told my team at work before I told my parents, which I paid for, by the way. That was probably not my smartest decision, but I just knew that I was in a really hard spot, and that I needed to share with them that I was going to show up really, really differently. So my circle capacity, my energy in that time was so much so taken up by what was going on in my personal life. And most of the time we just try to make the circle bigger. We're going through something, we're tired, we're going through a divorce, we have a kid who's struggling in school, homeschooling. If anybody's as good a homeschool teacher as me, then you are beating the crap out of yourself, because you're like, this, how do I do this? How do I sit on 12 hours of Zoom calls and try to teach my daughter math? Like, no, I'm a CFO, but I do not know how to do math the way they teach our kids how to do it, right? So how much of my energy and capacity like, how do I even do this? Like, how do I even get through my day? Like, I don't even know what to do with my calendar today to make room for my child, who should be more important than my job. We often hear it as like balance, right? Oh, that's the question, probably the number one question I get is like, how do you balance it all? And the answer is you don't, because my energy is finite. Balance is not real. Balance is this perception, especially of women, of what we're supposed to be doing, or this idea that we're supposed to do it all and do it all well and do it all without complaining. And I don't do it all. And I think the only way to balance out this circle, right? It's not to grow the circle. It's not like, oh, I'm going through a divorce, so I'm just going to add that. And somehow my circle of energy and the way that I show up as my best self is not going to shift. It's just not real. It's really to assess it. I mean, I draw that circle for myself based on how I'm feeling. Like I think I'm hitting a bit of a COVID wall right now. Working home, not having reciprocal energy with my team and my employees and things like that. And even when I was an entrepreneur, I realized that it's like, I'm not motivated without my team. So then I said, a couple days a week, I need you to come to the house and we need to work together because I just will get more done. I'm more productive that way. And so like, I really sit with like, okay, here's my energy feeling. What's taking up my circle when I'm having those days where I can't get it done? And how do I think about rebalancing that? And what I would encourage you as a group, as a membership organization, is to get an accountability partner about your circle. I hope that when you get off of this call, and I'll send slide decks so that you have like little worksheets to do this with each other, find one of your friends on this call and use this as a way to talk through what you might be experiencing when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you know your energy has shifted, or maybe you've just been on 10 for the last 5 years and so you're used to that. It's still a good time to say, like, I'm trying to make something bigger that is finite. I'm trying to make it grow when really all I can do is just rebalance within that circle and say, like, I don't have the energy to worry about my outfit. Like, I'm full up just trying to be great at my job and trying to be a decent parent. And so, Danielle, you're going to have one go. Like, that cannot be a part of your circle anymore. If I'm sitting in a meeting, and you guys, if those of you who said you're having a difficult time asserting yourself or finding your voice, this is a trick I'd love for you to take away, especially on Zoom now. You can really do this. No one will even know you're doing it. Is to just see how many times you think something and don't say it. Just like little tally marks. And then I want you in the next meeting to tally how many times you think something, don't say it, and somebody else says it. And then I want you to commit to yourself, next time I'm going to say one of these things. I'm going to put my little tally mark down. I'm going to stop myself and I'm going to say it. Not all of them. Start small, and you're going to realize that the over-analysis that you were using is taking up your energy. You just took a piece of your pie, a piece of your greatness, a piece of what brought you to the table in the first place by analyzing whether you should or not. I say dumb things at least 50% of the time. And somehow I'm still here because I speak first and think about it, think about it later. I'm actually very self-analytical, but it works in reverse of most people, which is an overuse of my strength, which is that I will say it and then later I'll analyze whether I should have said it. And I don't need to say things as much as I do, and it's okay. Like, it's pretty well received in most cases, and maybe it didn't add any value to the conversation and people still don't beat me up, but I would encourage you that all the analysis that goes into thinking about whether you should say something or whether it sounds smart enough or whether it's the right time to say it is really taking the fact that group probably needs to hear everything that you're saying, because there's probably someone in that group that's colorblind, right? And if you're not there to say what you're saying and bring your perspective and lived experience to that decision, that person that's sitting across the table may never see the color as clearly as we would want them to, as clearly as leaders would want for someone to do. And so I hope that you'll leave this conversation and really find an accountability partner about your circle. Spend some time with yourself. You deserve it. To say, like, am I wasting a piece of my beautiful pie on things that just don't serve me, don't make me better at my job, in fact, make me self-critical, hurt my self-worth, make me feel like an imposter, which is really important for us as women. So imposter syndrome is the most real thing on the planet Earth. And we all experience it. And then when you have intersectionality, there's even more things about yourself that make you feel like an imposter. I feel like an imposter all the time still. I've been in 5 industries in my career, and I have a whole career ahead of me. And I still, sort of get really uncomfortable when Genevieve's reading my bio, or I'm like, shoot, why did I come on video already? Because like I know how uncomfortable I'm going to be when somebody reads my bio instead of just being like, this is your journey. And how special is that? I just feel like an imposter, like somehow the awards, like I didn't deserve them, or, you know, career, it's like, it's not a big deal. All those stories that we tell ourselves that make us feel like an imposter. And it's so, so real. And those pieces where you just feel like I don't belong are taking up your circle. They're taking up your energy. And I want us all to like move away from feeling like imposters. It'll never go away. Like imposter is real. There will be something new tomorrow that makes you feel like an imposter that didn't make you feel like an imposter yesterday. So that's why I try to give these like really tactical tips and tricks about feeling like an imposter and what you can do to sort of just break habits and the way that you talk to yourself around imposter syndrome, not that it'll go away. And the first thing is that like it's real, you're not crazy, and everyone experiences it. So the most confident, strong person that you think you know, who walks in a room with the biggest ego and they know everything and they seem to just have it all figured out and all together, like likely has worse imposter syndrome than you, and overcompensates by the appearance of having it all together, or the lack of like vulnerability and authenticity about having a really bad day. So I want you to first give yourself a break, because the first issue with imposter syndrome is how much we beat ourselves up for even having it or letting it help us make decisions. Imposter syndrome doesn't drive good decision making. It doesn't drive self-worth. It exists, but it's not something that you want to be like, ooh, am I qualified? You've heard the data around women and us applying for jobs, and we'll be like 80% qualified and use the 20 to talk ourselves out of a job. And men will be like, oh, I'm 40% qualified. This thing is mine. And that is so, so real. And it's an imposter syndrome thing. It's a, how do I get perfect? How do I do it all before I actually do it? Because the fear of that rejection in the 20% is what we were sort of raised to focus on in this society. And so the first part of imposter syndrome is that like it exists, it will be there, it will creep into your mind at all kinds of, you know, inappropriate, inconvenient times, and that's okay. And everyone sitting around the table with you is experiencing that in some way as well. And you literally have to combat it. Some of these exercises we've talked about already, and some more that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I wanted to just take a survey. I can't see anybody's names or anything. This is a really safe place. But how many of you have at least one insecurity that makes you feel like an imposter? A 100%. If 100% of us have something that makes us feel like an imposter, are any of us really imposters? I don't have the answer, but I just thought I would throw that out. Maybe we are all normal. We all belong to the same club, and the club is that there are things that make us really insecure about our jobs or about where we've made it or where we want to go, right? This is imposter syndrome is the killer of more dreams than anything else that happened, right? Killer of more promotions than anything else that happened. It's the killer of diversity. So, you know, for years, we were starting to see real diversity in the C-suite across Fortune 500 companies. So a lot more women, a lot more people of color, a lot more women of color. And actually the retention rate was such abysmal that we really had to ask ourselves, okay, we were getting people there, but people weren't staying. And I believe with all of me that this is an imposter syndrome issue, which is that you get there, you look around, people don't look like you, they don't have the same lived experience as you, you're the only one that ever chooses gray in the group, and everybody else always chooses green, but the reason you choose gray is because you have this deep lived experience that brought you to the table that could probably make that company better, but because you don't feel like you belong, you feel like you weren't meant to be there, you start to talk yourself out of even thinking that gray is an important part of the conversation, right? And so imposter syndrome takes over. And so I think that's why we see retention rates that are just really bad at a higher level, because nothing in the system was built to support a different perspective or to support the life of a mom who's also a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So there's so much extra maneuvering, there's so much use of the pie in order to make it work, that people burn out quickly. And so I encourage you to think about your imposter syndrome and that thing that came to your mind, or the things, if you're me, that come to your mind when you feel insecure. You know, I'm a woman of color, so there's all kinds of things that go with that intersectionality, but I'm also really young. And if I was going to say there was one thing that has driven deep imposter syndrome in me, is being young and being the youngest person in the room and feeling like I was automatically going to be seen as less experienced. And I used to think like having less experience was a death sentence, or like just meant I wasn't as good. And it really, it's just a mathematical fact. You think somebody CFO would be better with that, but yeah, I have less years of experience than most, if not all, people that are in similar roles or titles or positions. It's just mathematically true. And it also means, yes, there are things I don't know, and I haven't had the beautiful extra time to learn the wisdom or experience. It also means there's people who have done their jobs for 40 years who have refused to learn anything new, who aren't great. And so experience doesn't equal to do your job. And that's just been a journey that I've been on, and realizing that sometimes my fresh eyes really was the superpower. So the very thing that was making me insecure was actually the thing that was serving me. And I'll tell you the deepest, most real part of my imposter syndrome. And so I became a CFO really young. I was 20, early into my career. So once I graduated from college, I didn't share with people that I had my son at 16. Like, it just wasn't something I shared. So I'm going to work, and I'm sending my child off to school in the morning, and I'm not talking about it. I'm not talking about what grade he's in, because I don't want people to do the math or how old he is. In some cases, I think people were surprised to find out I even had kids. And looking back at that, like, oh my gosh, how sad for me. Like, I look at that young girl and I'm like, how sad for you that you felt like you couldn't share that you felt like being a teen mom was a label that meant you couldn't be anything else that you wanted to be in your career. And so if they knew this, you would be prevented from being all the things that you want to be. And so the first time I got promoted into leadership, I was just a disaster. Like, I was awful. I was that boss that nobody wanted to have. Overnight, I go from having no employees to a team of 27. And most of them had been at the state health department longer than I'd been alive. They had kids my age. Like, it was just every dynamic of imposter syndrome for my deep insecurity of always being the youngest, because long before I had a career, I was always the youngest mom. And the way they looked at me when I walked into the kindergarten Mother's Day celebration or any of those things, and you just don't want to be seen as the youngest all the time, because in the story, the narrative I created for myself was that when you're the youngest, it also means you're the worst, or that you don't know what you're doing. That's not what anyone said to me. It's the narrative that imposter syndrome caused me to create and sort of be living by and making my decisions and choices by. And so, maybe 6 months into being a CFO for the first time and having this team, I was working like 16, 17 hours a day. I wasn't delegating anything. Every decision had to be run by me. People were just exhausted and furious. And I just was pretty sure I was going to get fired. And I remember like just thinking, like, if you're going to get fired, you should just go down being yourself. And I wrote that in my journal, and I went to work the next day and I said to my team, like, can I explain to you why I'm so defensive about being young? And I said, I have a 10-year-old son. I had a baby at 16, and I'm just so scared everyone's going to judge me for my age. And I know I can't hide my age, because I didn't look a day older than what I was. Now I'm like, grateful for that. But, I can't hide my age. And so I'm doing all these defense mechanisms. I'm fighting the whole world because I don't want you to see me as inexperienced, because that's my greatest fear. That's what makes me feel like an imposter, is to look around a room and know that people have been doing this 20 years longer than you. And so, yeah, what value could you possibly add, Danielle? And I just remember that the way that they rallied around me changed my life. And it taught me what leadership was. It taught me leadership is vulnerability and authenticity, and to not have imposter syndrome, but to share it when you do. I talk about imposter syndrome with my employees in our feedback so much. It's like a part of our loop in how we communicate with each other, and like, hey, how is my imposter syndrome showing up in a way that's not serving me right now? Or have I attached a behavior to the narrative that I'm telling myself about why I belong here? And how can I, as your leader, or how can I, as your partner, or how can I, as an accountability partner or a friend to my friends, when we have this conversation, how can I show up for you in a way that reminds you that that's a false narrative? Or how do I make you feel like you belong more? This is also a great way to get advice from your bosses, no matter how high up or not high up you are, to ask, to tell your bosses, this is what I need in order to not feel like an imposter in this organization or on this team or in this industry, or when I show up in a meeting, here's a way that here's something you could do for me that would help me belong. Or here's how you can hold me accountable to not living into my imposter syndrome. And it just changes feedback, because here's the thing about being a professional woman. No one says you should be less of anything else just because you're a woman who's going to work at whatever level it is that we're going to work every day. There's no permissions to be less engaged as a mom. There's no permissions to be less engaged as a friend. There's no permissions to be less engaged as a spouse or in the home or taking care of things. It's this feeling that you have to do it all. So the second that you're not, you start to let the imposter syndrome creep in. It's like, well, I'm good at business, but maybe I'm not a great mom because like I'm not making brownies for the PTO, or I don't have time to go to the PTO meetings. Or like, if you never hear it from anyone else again, you have permission to not go to PTO meetings if you don't want to. You also have permission to go if it's something that fills your circle up in an energetic way where you are like, this is a good space for me. I add a ton of value here. It makes me feel fulfilled to do it. Nobody wants Danielle Schutz at a PTO meeting. I'm a nightmare. I'll be like, what's the return on that investment? And let's do a strategic plan for the PTO. And they're like, can somebody make this lady go home? That's the way I add value. Those are the conversations I want to be having. My daughter wouldn't want me to bake brownies for anything, let alone something her friends would have to eat. And she's a great baker, which is great. So, even if you're not that, our kids can become whatever the heck they want to be, whether we were great at it or not. I really do try to shift my energy into doing that I'm good at, that I like, that are growing me. So if I'm doing something that's painful and I hate it, there's got to be a reason for it. I would rather work harder and have more dollars to, to have people do things in my business that I'm not great at. So certain things that I just procrastinate on and things like that. So if you have that list, I just want you to give yourself permission to lean in to the things that make you feel fulfilled and the things that make you feel great. And, I feel like I raised two really beautiful and kind and independent and confident children. And I did that while working, a lot, a lot, traveling 70% of my time while I was at Comcast and just making the best of it. And, really we have a saying that's called, it's the quality of my time with you, not the quantity. And if I'm with you all the time, but I'm distracted, frustrated, exhausted, angry, on my phone, then, I'm not adding value to you that I want to be. I'm not engaged in what we're talking about and what we're saying. The other trick I have for this is just compartmentalize your time, every bit of your day. Like it's okay to only do this thing during this time and not feel like you have to be multitasking and doing a million things at once. I'm not good at it. And I think there's a bunch of data that says none of us are good at it, but it certainly is an expectation of us. And if there's ways to cut that down and let you give yourself the time to focus on one thing at a time, your energy ball won't get taken up so much in the ways that it do. Your mind won't critique yourself throughout as much as it would, you'll feel a little better because you might have only got 2 things done because you only worked on 2 things instead of I got nothing done because I worked on 6 or 7 things all day and I was trying to be 6 or 7 different people all day. And the other thing I want to give us permission to do is to like live the narrative of your personal life stays at home and your professional life comes to work, as if there are 2 different people living inside of you. And this is hard because this is our society taught us this. It's not like we created this for ourselves. This is a really true about like, don't bring your personal life. I'm sure certain people heard me say, I told my whole team I was getting a divorce before my parents, and we're like, whoa, what? But I think it's so important and it's so freeing. And if you can start with one thing that is like, who are you when you go to work that is different who you are when you're at home? And how do you bring that person to work? Like, I'm a very silly, playful person. I don't take myself very seriously. I don't take much very seriously, actually. And I think maybe because I had a baby at 16, like everything else just seems like doable. It's like if I survived that, everything else seems doable. But I remember early in my career, I was showing up as so serious because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. It was a part of the imposter syndrome. It was a part of me moving from gray into the majority of green, which was like, I got to be more serious, right? Like I can't laugh or cut a joke or make fun of myself in front of this group. And that was my energy because it was inauthentic. It's inauthentic for me to take myself too seriously. It's inauthentic for me to take situations too seriously. I am the person that will bring levity to a conversation, but I wasn't doing that. And that's just such a great gift. And so I want everybody to remember that the overuse of your strengths become your weaknesses. We are not these flawed beings. We are beautiful people, all of us born with gifts and strengths only. That's what I believe. And then we grow up in environments that teach us to overuse those strengths or to shrink them so that we can survive when we feel like we belong. So like I am really decisive and I can see like quickly in my head like a vision for a solution to almost any problem. When I overuse that strength, it comes off as impatient. So I have impatience when people want to walk through a process for hours and hours and hours, or I have impatience in much detail. And so rather than say to myself, like, gosh, Danielle, you need to fix that. Like you need to be more detail oriented. Well, there will never be a day in life where organically I'm more detail oriented, where my natural instinct will be to be like, please give me a huge spreadsheet with a bunch of detail in it before you give me the story or the outcome. It's not my strength. It's not who I am. So what I do is just try to balance the behavior of impatience. That's easy. I can make sure that I'm not cutting people off or interrupting people or showing signs that I can't sit through a meeting because I've already got the answer. I can let people go on their process without having to change a single thing about myself, right? All I'm doing is changing the behaviors in which the overuse of my strengths might be showing up. That doesn't serve me or serve my team or serve the outcomes I want it to. I've done so much as say, hey, like my calendar's crazy anyway. And so if you're going to walk through a lot of detail of a spreadsheet, invite me in for the last 15 minutes. Or if you can't get to a decision and you've got 2 choices, I don't need a ton of information to help you make a choice. So just invite me in when you get stuck. And my teams would be like, that's great. Like, Danielle's not in here like in the meeting, and I'm not in a meeting that is taking up so much detail that I'm getting impatient or distracted. And so just really coming up with ways that it's like, you're beautiful. Like your strengths are so perfect. Like don't change yourself. Like I hate that that's the way we're given feedback. It's so unfair. It doesn't help people grow. Like, you always hear this feedback, be more strategic. It's like, what does that even mean? Like, and like the context for strategy is so different. Some things don't need a strategy. Some things need an amazing operations person who's not going to miss, dotting an I or crossing a T. And it's like, I'm a great strategic person. And if you bring me in to like build a detailed operation plan, like it's going to be a nightmare. And it doesn't mean I'm not good. It just means that that's not my strength, and that you want to build the team in a way that better serves the outcomes that you're trying to get to, rather than give me feedback that has me going home, feeling like I'm crazy or like something's wrong with me. And so when people are giving you this inactionable feedback that makes you feel like there's a character issue, I hope that you can ask in response, well, what does that look like? Like, what does the behavior like? How am I showing up in a way that didn't serve me? And really make people get granular with you, and do the same for others. If you have a team, do the same for others, because it's really, really important. And every time you're struggling in some way, I want you to ask yourself what strength it is that you're overusing. Like, what is the beautiful thing about you that actually is choosing or the beautiful thing about you that is having you actually show up in a way that might not be serving you. There's something that's just so organic to who you are as a human, or that you've learned to navigate the world a little differently. That strength came with negative feedback before. And so just change your perspective on that. Ask yourself that same question that we started with, like, how might I be wrong? Like, am I not strategic? Or is there a behavior that's showing up? Is me asking a lot of questions in a meeting showing up as me not being strategic? Well, how simple is that to go, okay, I have 12 questions in my mind. I'm going to limit myself to 6 this time, because I don't want people to think I'm not strategic just because I like to ask questions. I'm a curious person, which is a beautiful strength. Getting that type of feedback, giving yourself a break, remembering that you are this whole person that's bringing all these amazing things to the table, no matter how crazy some of the feedback is and how much you're spinning on it. And it's the feedback that you spin on. It's the feedback where you're like, I really don't see myself that way. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I feel like I can't get anything right. Something's up with that feedback. Somebody is telling you to something or do something that is not even real. It's not organic to who you are. And that's where you can really dig in and say, like, what's the behavior? Like, is there a behavior I could change? And if they can't tell you what the behavior is, then that feedback's not meant for you anyway. Because we owe each other clarity is kindness. Brene Brown says that. And I agree that that's so true. And just remember, you choosing gray is beautiful, because your experience with gray is yours, and it's not wrong. It's right. It's the right thing. And then how do you perspective on that could allow you to make a different decision? And how can you hold others accountable to meeting you at gray? Because sometimes that's the right place to be too. And so I want to make sure that we have time for questions, because I talked a little longer than I wanted to, but I will stop there and see if we have any questions from the group out there. I can't see any of you, so put them in either the chat or the Q&A. No? I'll just put you on the spot. I have no problem with this. Yes. Okay, here they come. What has been my biggest motivator? Oh, what a good question. So here's the interesting thing about that, is that it evolves. In the beginning, when I had my son and I went to college and everything, I was motivated by proving people wrong, because when you get pregnant at 16, people have a lot to say about who you are as a person. And a lot of people gave up on me. A lot of people said, oh, well, like, she had such a bright future and she could have been all these things, and there goes that, right? And so if I'm being perfectly honest with you, my motivation was this sort of rebellious streak I have of, like, you're not going to tell me who I am. You're not going to tell me what to do. And it served me so well. And then, a few years in, I was motivated by, like, wanting to make my son really proud, and never wanting him to have to suffer because of the choice that I made to have him at such a young age. And then it's really evolved. And if I am being honest, purpose, what my purpose is and what I really love to do, and what value to whatever I'm doing at that moment, I've discovered that in the past couple of years, and that's really drawn me, and I'm motivated by that, because I believe, like, there's a reason that I'm doing what I do, and that I believe whatever situation I go into, I know what I want to bring to that situation. And so I'm really motivated by that. I'm, like, really motivated by showing up, like, as my whole self, and bringing value to the situations that are at hand. And so My motivation has changed. I'm sure it will change again at times. There's different things that get me out of bed on my hardest days over the last, 18 years. Uh, and as long as there's something, as long as you can find something to get you out of bed, I think you'll be okay. And I think as we evolve as people, so does what motivates us, and that's okay. That's actually really cool. It makes me feel relieved a little bit. Okay, somebody asked me, do you have tips on how to deal with burnout? I will start by saying they're tips that I do not actually live by very well. This is an area I struggle with very much. I have two speeds. It's like 100 and it's like a knockdown, drag out. You couldn't get me up if you tried. So I'll go, 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 go. And then I won't do anything for a week. And I will really start to burn out and see my whole behavior change because I'm really burning out in a situation. And so for me, I think the best tips for burnout that I'm really, really deeply working on right now is boundaries. And my friends, my fellow ladies in the fight, we are not good at this. Even the ones of us that think we are good at this is where burnout comes from. It is sort of a lack of boundaries, a lack of like, I want to say no. We're really good at fixing things for people, and so we do. And so for me, the burnout comes from like, okay, how much of my day am I spending on doing things for me, things that I love, things that serve growth or my dreams or my team or whatever, and how my day do I spend doing things for other people. And the first things to do is to eliminate the things that we do for ourselves. When we're busy, we're tired, we're burning out, what do? Oh, I stopped getting massages because I didn't have time to go to the massage therapist anymore. I haven't gotten acupuncture in 6 months. Like my schedule just got crazy. My kid started a new sport. So my thing goes away to make room for my child's sport. And I think the only way to deal with burnout is to do the opposite, which includes think about how much of your time during your job you spend doing things you actually like to do versus doing things you don't. So literally go through your calendars or your tasks and write it down and then just color code it. And just like the things in red are things that like are not your strength. You don't like doing them. You usually put them off to the last bit of the day. They burn your energy, tired when you're done doing them. You dread doing them. Put those in red and then put everything else in black and go through like a really detailed thing. I mean, even to the point where you're like, oh, I stand at, not right now, but I stand in the office and I drink coffee and I talk with my coworkers for 15 minutes every day. And I love it. It feeds my energy. It gets me ready for my day. On the days where I have time to go through my email for an hour before I actually have to go into a meeting, like, whew, I feel better on those days. And pay attention to your energy and how your calendar shifts. And the stuff in red, if you're over 50% of your day in red, something might change. And that might even be the job you're doing. If more than 50% of my day was spent in a spreadsheet, I would have burned out of being a CFO years ago. Like I would have been like, this isn't for me. I don't love it. And so, gratefully I've been able to shift things out of my schedule that don't serve me. I'm struggling right now with burnout because I'm not getting enough energy with people. So I said that at the beginning. I'm actually not an extrovert, but 6 months of being at home has really hurt my ability to like really be motivated and really be structured during my day. And so I'm like, I got to go back to the office like once or twice a week going forward. Fortunately, I could do that. Or my assistant was like, nope, you're going to work in a coffee shop this day because she feels my energy when I'm not getting that. So, burnout is really about like spending a lot of your energy in ways that aren't organic. So, when you're doing things that you're good at, that you're getting a lot of affirmation about or doing or that you're passionate about, it actually feeds you. It actually fills your tank up. And when you're doing things that don't serve you, it actually takes your tank down. So even if someone's working 20 hours a day, but it's all on stuff they love, they'll burn out a lot slower than someone who just works their 8 hours, but they hate 6 out of 8 of those hours every single day. Someone who's deeply introverted and hates out loud processing, but has 10 hours of meetings a day is going to burn out really, really quickly. And so it's about shifting. Like, that's not the right way for me to be my best. So how do I shift the tasks? How do I shift the work, how do I make sure I have blocks between meetings to work, or even times of day that you're doing certain types of tasks can really help you avoid burnout. But I guess in summary, what I'm saying is you have to know yourself really well. So you have to know when your energy is shifting. You have to know that your behavior is being caused by like the start of burnout, exhaustion. Like, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to go there. I used to love this job. I hate this job now. And so being able to pick those things apart for yourself so that you can say, like, what is the root cause of my burnout? It's not just that I work a lot. It's what I'm doing when I work, or maybe you're not working enough. Like, that's a thing too. There's a lot of are staying at home because that's what's needed for the family. And so what's happening at home is not enough of the type of tasks that feed your energy. And so I think that's a really important conversation for us to think about too, and shift out of it. If I was at home all day, every day, which I am now, I'm still working, but I'm at home all day, every day. It's caught now at a much faster rate than it would be if I was actually getting up and doing my routine and going to the office and doing brainstorming with my team on a whiteboard, which I miss. So there's just simple things like that that actually feed your energy versus drain it, that you have to know yourself really well. And so, like, start with one day, like, of next week, and go through it, color code it, and find out what percentage of your time are you doing things that you really don't like to do, because that drives burnout. I love that. Let me make sure I'm getting these questions. When you have a seat at the table full of men, yeah, every day, and you contribute to the conversation, are not heard, and another contributes the same thought and is heard, how do you handle that and improve next time? I love this. Yeah, this happens so much. So I'll say something, hey, yeah, the sky's blue today, and everyone's like, and then Jim will say, the sky's blue, you know that? And everyone's like, what? That is remarkable when the sky is blue. Jim, you just know so much about the sky. So that happens all the time. I'm sure everyone's nodding their head. I can't see you. Here's the thing. One thing we should leverage as women is the ability to do for others what we can't often do for ourselves. So when this was happening, there was this particular group. I was having a ton of meetings with them. This was happening all the time. I was the only woman in the room. So it wasn't like I could just go find another woman and she could be my accountability partner. But there were people in the room who I felt safe with. And so I found one gentleman, asked him to be my accountability partner. I asked him to say, for me, when this happens, can you just say, yes, that's what Danielle just said? Because eventually when people hear that, they'll start to hear me when I said it initially. And he did. He was really there for me. Or if he missed it, we would talk after a meeting. Did you hear me say this? And he'd be like, you're right. I got you. And then I said I would do that for people. So I would notice, like, she gets interrupted all the time, or she just said that. So we have to be accountable to each other also, right? And say, like, yeah, Genevieve just said that. So thank you for repeating what Genevieve just said, like, in a diplomatic way. Like, yeah, for repeating what Genevieve just said. Or, yeah, I think that's what Genevieve was saying. And it just gets into people's rhythm that they might not be hearing other people. Now, and I recognize there's power dynamics at play here too, right? So I recognize I have the power to do some of this because of my position. I will also say, if someone gets interrupted, please let them finish. And it's just a nice way to say, like, please let them finish. And I'm the queen of interrupting people myself, because I just am so passionate and have so many opinions. And I really ask people to hold me accountable to that as well. So if it's hard to do it for yourself, try to just start doing the other women in the room. Pay attention. And then you'll see, my doorbell rang. Then you'll see sort of the outcomes start to shift for yourself too. Like, we're just kind of better at taking care of other people often. And so if that's what you have to do, is find someone who's going to take care of you, and you're going to take care of them in the meeting before you get to the meeting, that's okay. That's totally fine. You don't have to be the one that's always trying to defend yourself. There is somebody who you work with who's willing to do that for you, especially if it's reciprocal. Genevieve and I decide this is our partnership, this is our pact. And I hope you will find that person. Find that person to talk about your energy circle. Find that person to talk about your burnout and how you might overuse your strengths so that they can give you feedback, like off of this call, if it's somebody in this group, if it's like a whole group of, there's 5 of you or 6 of you that can come together as a group and talk about some of these things at the end of every week. I promise you they'll start to shift as you move forward. I think I got all the questions. Oh, what drove me to start my own business? Oh man, that's such a great question. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. This is like a piece of my imposter syndrome. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My brother's a very successful entrepreneur. But I had started a blog after I did my first TED Talk, and the blog got really popular. And so actually I never thought I would turn it into a business until one of my friends sort of said, you need to turn this into a business. It's like monetize the conversation and the coaching that's through the blogs. And I was getting so many emails and trying to respond to those emails with some of the tactical tips and stuff like we talk about today. And they were like, you can just write all that content in advance. It has themes. So it's evolved. It's been 2 years. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary this week with the Daily Boss Up, and we're about to launch our app, which I'm super excited about. All of this coaching like in the app, in your pocket when you need to be reminded of it, and these exercises. So it's like you can carry an accountability partner along with you if you don't have one at your job. But it really did come out of a different passion, which is writing and sharing stories. And I had this blog and turned into a business. And so I still actually in my business try to focus on love, which is coaching and content and writing. And I have people who do the stuff that I'm not super great at, all the stuff in red font that eventually would have made this business super successful if it was on me to do. So that's why I started it. We are at 12:58, so I will not push for any more questions over time because we've been here for an hour and a half, but I will say for having me. I'm grateful to be here with you. I wish we could be in person, but we adapt and we are flexible so well. And that you can always reach out to me. I'll send the deck with some of the exercises and find an accountability partner and someone to work through some of these things with. And you can always reach out to my information in it. So if you ever need anything or just want to run this by somebody or run, you know, you had a bad, just want a tip, like I will answer emails. It might take me a week, but I will answer them. And I am so grateful for having you. So I don't know who I'm supposed to pass off to wrap us up, but I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I appreciate it. Oh my God, you were so inspiring. I got so much out of your chat today. I really, you know, you always hope to pick up a golden nugget, you know, when you listen to a speaker, but when you leave with a pocket full, that's really a special day. So thank you for my pocket full of golden nuggets. So, yeah, and I want to remind everybody the chat is up still. So if we wanted to, you know, if you had any other questions that you wanted us to pass on to Danielle and see if, you know, we can maybe get you some answers post luncheon, well, we can certainly do that as well. As well, the chat is still up for, we're looking for your ideas for content. What do you guys need? You know, do you want little 3 to 5 minute videos on tips or problems, how to deal with some problems that you may be facing at work, or, you know, those kinds of things? We really are looking to you guys to give you the content that you're looking for. You know, we really want to serve. So we're going to leave that chat up for a little bit. So please go ahead and put your ideas in there. We'd like to thank our sponsors again, of course, Kim Griebling with Custom Fly Company, Sarah Ferguson with BAC, and Stacy Locke with Structure. So some closing remarks that I'd like to leave you all with today, on top of thanking our amazing speaker. It was an extraordinary day, and I feel blessed that we were all able to experience that. This week also marked something very important for all of us, for all of us women, which was the 100th anniversary of the suffrage movement. We actually got the right to vote 100 years ago this week. So I wanted to leave you with that feel good. I hope that you're exercising your duty this year. And also wanted to leave you with this: your best is always good enough. You are strong, you're beautiful. There's nothing that you can't accomplish if you don't put your mind to it. I hope you have a wonderful day. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks again. Bye.